Well, this next trap is remarkable in that it features some of the most natural moves you could imagine for white, but nonetheless he finds himself in very deep trouble after just a handful of moves. Now, it was played in a game between an unknown soldier and Gedult from in Bir Akheim, and this was actually the front line as the Free French Forces started their North African campaign in World War II. So a very dramatic setting. It wasn't played in London or anything. And the game opened like this. White played e4. Black replied with e5. White brought his knight out to f3. Black played knight c6. Both bishops came out. Bishop c4, bishop c5. And now white castled. Black played d6, white played d3, black played knight f6, and white brought his bishop out to g5. So all these moves look very, very natural, very ordinary. You wouldn't imagine that white would have to be extremely careful in this situation, but in fact he does. Now, black attacks the bishop with h6, and at this point white should either take on f6 or bring the bishop back to e3. In the game, he plays the bishop back to h4, and this is actually a very serious mistake. Apparently, this is a standard pin, and you think, well, if black plays g5, isn't that very risky? Well, not with black's king still on e8. If he castled kingside already, then I, for one, would not play g5 without checking it very, very carefully. But in this situation, black can play g5 with alacrity. Bishop has to come back here. There's no point in sacrificing or anything. And now black uncorks this move, h5, which has got the idea clearly to play h4. But you wonder, well, what happens if white takes on g5? Well, this is what white plays in the game. Now, there is an alternative for white, and that's to play this move. And we're going to be looking at that in the next game. It's also pretty complicated. It's good for black, I think, but it needs a separate game to have a proper look at that move. Knight takes g5 was played, and now black didn't bother defending f7. He just plunged on with this move, h4. Well, the bishop can't save itself, so white has to keep going. Plays knight takes f7, and then black ignores the attack on his queen and his rook, and just goes h takes g3, giving white a choice about what to take. Well, if he were to play knight takes h8, then I think the best move for black is to go queen to e7. And then if the knight were to return, at the moment black's got some very unpleasant threats like queen h7, threatening mate here. And if white were to play hg, then there's knight g4, renewing the threat of queen h2 mate. So white is best off trying to bring the knight back to f7. But then there would follow this: bishop takes f2 check, rook takes f2, g takes f2 check, king takes f2. And now knight g4 check starts a new wave of the attack. The queen wants to come up here, of course. And white's best move now is to stop that with king g3. But then queen f6 threatens this check, and if queen f3, black goes queen back here. Now, although white is 2 pawns up in this situation, I think his position is absolutely desperate. The queen is sitting opposite the king and threatening discovered check. This knight can come in here. Black's ready to get his king castled over here in certain situations. Tremendous attack for black, and I don't think white would last very long in that situation. Now, going back to the game, white decides to go for the big game. He takes the queen off instead. But then black brings this bishop out to g4, hitting white's queen on d1. Now, in the game, white now played this move. If instead he'd played his queen to d2, then black would play his knight into d4. Now, the big threat in this situation is to go knight f3 check. For example, if white were to play knight c3, then black just goes here, and after pawn takes, he plays bishop takes. Now this is a threat, which would be mate, and if white plays hg, can't move the f pawn of course because it's pinned against the king, then black plays his rook here, mate. And the other possibility is after knight d4, if white were to take this, then black still goes in like that, pawn takes, bishop takes, and now there's no good defense against rook h1 mate. So bishop g4 is extremely dangerous for white. He decided not to move the queen, but instead to attack this rook on h8. And rather than taking the queen off, after which white would get the rook, black just goes in with rook takes h2. So this renews his threats. Now white finally decides to move the queen away, and then black plays knight into d4, and now of course the idea is to go knight f3 check yet again. White tries to defend himself with knight to c3, but then there comes this, knight f3 check, g takes f3, bishop takes f3, so there's a threat now to play rook h1 mate. But white had seen that he had an ingenious defense here with queen h6, so he's defending h1 that way. It doesn't save him because black's got something else he can do now. What he plays here is rook g2 check, forcing white's king here, and then he removes the f2 pawn, at the same time giving a discovered check with his bishop. Okay, well there's nothing else for white to do here. He has to go king back to g1, and then black gives a discovered check from the other bishop with rook g2 check, and when white goes king here, there's rook to g1, double discovered checkmate. And I think that was a really fantastic game, you know, especially when one bears in mind the situation in which it was played. You know, you're playing this this game on the front line, about to go into battle. You know, it's a tremendous game. And for me, what's special about this is the natural moves that white plays, but nevertheless finds himself in such serious trouble. Bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, and then g5, bishop g3, h5 is tremendously strong for black. Now the other move for white is h4, and that's a move that was once played against Wilhelm Steinitz, and we're going to be looking at that next. It's also critical, but I think once again it's very good for black.